What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with some Detroit Lions news. That's right, we're back with an episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And man, we got a trade. So let's get it started. Welcome right to our video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we are back with some breaking Detroit Lions news, man. And this is an interesting one, man. I'm excited about this one. It is a familiar name who is now back with the Detroit Lions. Now, the details of this trade are undisclosed as of now. I'm sure those will be out there very soon. By the time you're seeing this, you may know. By the time I'm editing, I may know as well. But I'm going to try to keep this video short and sweet, quick as possible to get this video out there. Now, before we get to the trade news, first off, I do want to say that it also has been reported that the Detroit Lions have waived undrafted free agent signing out of Virginia, Keytaon Thompson. I believe that's how you say his name, right, if I remember correctly. Now, this was a guy that was a former quarterback, kind of transitioning to the receiver position. He had sort of a strange body type. It was like, is he going to be a big receiver or is he going to be like a small tight end in terms of the way that he's built? He was kind of weird for a projection there and trying to figure out what exactly position he was going to play, but he was very dynamic with the ball in his hands. A former quarterback that was super athletic. He was just a crafty playmaker, and that had me excited to see what was going to happen. But as of now, it has been reported that he has been waived, so wishing him the best of luck going forward. With that being said, though, let's talk about this trade. Reportedly, the Detroit Lions are trading for kicker Riley Patterson. That's right, Riley Patterson from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is back with the Detroit Lions. You may be wondering, yes, we do have kickers under contract as of right now. That could change for sure, but we did re-sign Michael Badgley heading into this offseason. Obviously, we didn't land anybody in the draft. Jake Moody went round 3, so it's going to be hard to add somebody like that. After the draft, we ended up adding a kicker from the XFL and John Parker Romo that we brought in for competition as well between those two. Now the Lions reportedly have went out and traded for Riley Patterson. Now, it was initially reported a few hours ago, I saw, that Riley Patterson was waived by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we know when you're waived, you have to go through the waiver wire, and the Lions are not in the same position that they were a year ago, where they would be second in that order. So, they would be at number 18 based on the standings last season, and they may have had that fear of like, man, if we really want to get this guy, we may not be able to land him if we just let it go through the waiver wire and see if anybody put a claim in before us. The Lions may have thought someone was going to do that. Kind of reminds me of Trinity Benson. It's the opportunity of not getting him necessarily, so they just went out and traded for Trinity Benson. Jacksonville Jaguars just went out and signed kicker Brandon McManus, who was released by the Denver Broncos. Now, statistically speaking, in terms of career, he actually has a lower field goal percentage than Riley Patterson, but Riley Patterson has only been kicking in the NFL for 2 seasons. Then you have to go back to Memphis, where he was a 77% field goal kicker. But Riley Patterson has been good in the NFL. But one thing that we do know back when he was with us, and we saw it with Jacksonville, he doesn't have the biggest leg necessarily. So for a team like Jacksonville and a guy like McManus coming from a team like Denver, where you have to kick outside in some weather conditions, they may have been looking for a guy with a bigger leg. The Lions, they play in a dome, right? They're indoors, so it could definitely be a different situation when essentially half your games are all inside, and then of course you have some road games that are inside as well, where for the Lions, it's an interesting one, but what it feels like to me is the Lions just kind of acknowledging, yeah, we messed up, we shouldn't have let this guy go. You know, just essentially that, like, yeah, okay, we shouldn't have let this guy go. Because if you remember back, he initially got his opportunity with the Lions in 2021. The reason his stat line is only 13-14 that season, after Ryan Santoso had a tough, you remember, 48-yard miss, stepped in as the kicker for the Lions, finished very strong to end the season. His only miss, I believe, was at Seattle. Trying to go back and check it out, was at Seattle. It was a 50-plus yard field goal heading into halftime. That was his only miss. We know that was an outdoor game. I don't think the weather was great in that game either. Then the Lions came in with basically Austin Seibert, who was coming off of going 10 for 12. He had some injuries with an open competition. And Austin Seibert was 4 for 5 in the preseason. Riley Patterson was 2 for 2 in the preseason. But Seibert clearly had more opportunities, and Riley Patterson, while he made both, were both short field goal attempts. Because of that, the Lions went with Austin Seibert. But then again, because of injuries, led to consistency, and then last year we started to see us kind of bouncing around. Ultimately, that led to Michael Badgley, who again, we picked up from Chicago Bears not too far into the season, and he ended up doing pretty well for us this past year, right? I mean, I know there's some bad memories early, but not all of that was actually him. Once we re-signed him, we kind of went through that. So we bring Michael Badgley back. But now the Lions are bringing back Riley Patterson, who for them was 13 of 14. His only miss was a 50-plus yard field goal. And in this past season, while he may not have the biggest leg, and I can remember situations where it's like, I don't know if we want to put him out there because this field goal is just too long, you do get a consistent kicker. And if you look at last season, he was 30 of 35. On 40 to 49 yard field goals, he was 10 of 13. When you look at 50-plus yard field goals, he was only 2 of 3 with a 53-yard long. He didn't have a 50-plus yard kick when he was with us. But when you just look at his misses, if you notice, number one, a lot of them are outdoors, at Jets, at Chiefs, at Washington. And if you notice as well, it seems like a lot of the further field goals that he missed tend to miss left, probably because he's pulling it, trying to get some power into those kicks. But they're outdoors. Again, we're indoors. The only miss with Lions was at Seattle, outdoors, long field goal attempt. And then he had the one right upright kick against the Raiders. He had two that hit the right upright, but one was indoors against the Raiders. So you are getting a pretty consistent kicker that for his career at this point in time is essentially an 88% field goal kicker. However, this past season, it was about 86%. With the Lions, it was 93%, though it was shortened. Michael Badgley, career-wise, is much lower than that, pushing 82%. But again, with the Lions, he was kicking at 83%, being 20 of 24. And if you look at the whole of the season, because he went 4 of 4 before that, he was essentially the same exact percentage as Riley Patterson has been over his career. So I think it's going to be an open competition for sure, but it's almost like when the Lions saw that this guy was going to become available, they're like, let's not risk it, let's go get that guy. Yesterday we signed a tackle. I loved it. That may have been 2 days ago, but we signed a backup tackle, I think, or potentially a guard, and I was like, man, this is something I've been waiting for. And that was one of the Achilles heels for me. And we all know that kicker can turn into that very fast, and we know how fast kickers get moved around. One thing I do keep in mind here, and again, we know some teams strategically do this, so I'm not going to act like I saw the kickoffs by Jacksonville and he just couldn't get it there, but he had 88 kickoff attempts and only 44 of them, half of them, landed in touchbacks. Now, we know there's been a change of rule where it's like everything can be fair caught now, so that could change some things, but only 50% of his kickoffs were touchbacks. If the Jacksonville Jaguars potentially want a guy with potentially a bigger leg, maybe more consistently for kickoff specialist, maybe that's part of the reason that they did this as well. But that's not us. We're the Lions. We got Riley Patterson, who has been a good, consistent kicker in the NFL to this point, to add some competition clearly to the Lions. Doesn't have the biggest leg, but he's indoor, and he played well with us, and it feels like the Lions are kind of acknowledging we probably shouldn't have let this guy go. For a guy like Seibert that had potentially a bigger leg, the inconsistencies just were there. He wasn't healthy for us, unfortunately, things like that. And we've had to bounce around over these last couple of years a lot with kicker. Now it looks like the Lions have taken a step, and this could be their guy again, to finding more security. Maybe not the biggest leg, but reliability can be key. I mean, it's so hard to find that with guys coming out of college because, again, a lot of them, look at percentages, they're kicking like 70-some%, like Riley Patterson. And it's hard to find guys that consistently are hitting 85+% of his kicks. Patterson has been that so far in his short NFL career. And I do want to make the point, if you look at Badgley, he's only had 2 seasons with 23+ field goal attempts on the year. He's bounced around a lot. But in a full season, essentially, and kind of like a half season with the Lions, we've only seen one game in which Riley Patterson has missed multiple field goals, and that was the Chiefs game that was outdoors, and one was a 50+ yard field goal. That's it. He had a clutch game winner in the playoffs, and then he bounced back in his debut and went 3 of 4. He hasn't missed multiple, like that Washington game, he went 3 of 4, and he was an NFC Special Teams Player of the Week for the Lions back in 2021 versus Atlanta when he was 3 for 3. So there are some accolades too. The fact that he's back with the Lions, if you look at his contract, he technically only has this 1 year left at $940K cap hit, which is extremely low, but he is set to become an exclusive rights free agent after this year, which essentially means he's kind of under contract for 2 years, because if you want him back, you just give him the tender and he comes back on a minimum deal. So you essentially have him under contract for 2 years if you want him back next year. So I think it's great for the Lions. It's good to have that kind of competition. Again, Badgley wasn't bad for us last year, so the Lions always want that competition, and it looks like they added that here, but this just seemed like one of those things like, hey, we're not going to let him go through the waiver wire. We're going to take him. Undisclosed, probably a future late round pick swap. I would assume it's not much. Hopefully it's not much. Hopefully we didn't give up a second round pick for the guy, but I would assume we didn't. With that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Prof, for watching, and I'm out.